Yo, what's going on everybody? It's your boy Gronk here. So for today's video, we're going to be doing a story time. Now this story takes place, I'd say 2 or 3 months ago, and it is a fucking crazy experience. This is the craziest experience I've had in my life. So to begin the story, let's just paint the scene real quick. My friend moved away a couple years back, and he visits my state often. Now my friend is I'd say he's a regular user of substances. No, he's not like a junkie or anything, but he just, he chiefs a lot. And for the entirety of the time I've known him, he's known that I was never really going to be about using substances and whatever. And that ended up changing just because I wanted to let loose and there's things going on in my life. And he really wanted me to try weed. Now, I wasn't opposed to it because it was his last week here. And I was like, sure, let's do it. So we go to our local mall, and this mall is huge or whatever. And while we're there, we go to the bathroom, and he asked me, do you want a chief or do you want to eat an edible? And he had both of them on him. Now, personally, I just didn't like the idea of smoking at first. First of all, the whole thing with your lungs and stuff, because there's still carcinogens and it damages your lungs or whatever. So I really didn't want to do that. Especially I didn't want to have to deal with like getting like teary eyes and like coughing like crazy, because I'd probably be shit at chiefing. So I didn't do that. And instead, for my first time, I opted for edibles. Now one of my other friends was telling me not to do this because he had a bad experience when he did edibles for the first time. And he said, Sean, this is not a good idea. You're going to be paranoid as fuck. Trust me, you don't want to do this. Now, it was me, my friend, and 3 other guys, okay? Now, I'd say that the guys that I was with at the time, they're chill. I consider them my friends. 2 of them I'm very close with, and 2 of them not so much. So, it was a group of us 5, right? And of those 5 people, I trusted 2 of them a lot, and 2 of them I kind of knew they'd like to mess around and play around with me. This will come in handy later. We're at the mall, I have the edible, and nothing happens. It starts to kick in later, and once it starts kicking in is right around the time that we wanted to leave the mall, go to a spot, like a park, where we could chief. Now, this park, it's surrounded by water. It's like a little island, and the island has a little jetty on it. Now, what they wanted to do was go out to the end of the jetty and chief there. Okay, and by the time it took us to get there, it was 30 minutes. And the edibles already started to kick in. Now at first, for like the first hour, I was like, man, these edibles ain't shit. And then as soon as it hit, I knew right away. Cause we were on the drive there, and my boy, he brought along these like chocolate straws. I don't know, they're like swirly straws kind of. They're covered in like bread, right? Not bread, like crumbing or whatever the fuck. And they have like chocolate inside of them, and they're like rolled up. They're like, I don't know, the size of like 2 index fingers stacked. But that's besides the point. He asks me if I want them, and I just, instead of saying yes, I just grabbed them. And then they all start laughing because they're like, yo, his munchies are kicking in. And then I took a bite, bro. I swear to God, food has never tasted better in my life. That shit was fucking insane, bro. I took a bite. I was like, holy shit. And I didn't even I just thought that. Like, I just kept eating them. Like, I wouldn't let go of like the can of those fucking chocolate straws. And then the rest of them, they started getting mad because I was eating so many. So they're like, yeah, relax. But so they took them. Even before that, there were certain things that I was experiencing, like cotton mouth, or like there was some weird pressure in my eyes almost, or like in a sense of like fatigue, or just, I don't know how to describe it. Like, it was euphoric, but it was also like a tired, fatigue state. That's the best way to describe it. But when I got munchies, that was the first time I knew, like, shit, like, this stuff is kicking in. Moving on, eventually, like 30 minutes later, we get there, and now on the way there, I start tripping balls. Now, I know that sounds crazy, but if you guys might not already know from the things that I post, or, certain views that I have on life or whatever, my morals, etc., I don't exactly have the most positive mind or mindset. And because of that, whatever I was experiencing on this high was reflective of my mind. And this shit was horrible because these two friends that I was talking about that I'm not exactly too tight with, right? They they like to mess around a lot. They like to mess around a lot on the regular. So what I mean by that is they'll fuck with me, like they'll joke around with me, they'll like kind of prank me almost, right? Just, pull my leg a little bit. And they were doing this on the car right there. And my paranoia started kicking in because I started thinking like, yo, they're gonna upload these pictures of me like to the internet and I'm gonna get caught and like my college is gonna find out this and that. I started to get really scared of that happening. And it was fucking horrible, like I kept looking over at them. I was like, yo guys, like stop recording me. And like they weren't even recording me. Like that's just, my perception was so fucked that like anything and everything they did or said, I somehow found a way to twist it in relation to me. So you guys can already tell, like this was bad, like this is not good. And they were feeding into it, but not that much. Like, they were just doing a little bit here and there. And my other two friends, they were like, yo guys, like chill, like you shouldn't do that. But obviously they didn't stop. But that was the least of it. They didn't even do it that much before we got to the spot. So we got to the spot where we wanted to chief, and we got to like the edge of the island, the park island, and then there was a fucking jetty there. Now, this jetty, they said they wanted to go to the end of it and they wanted to smoke by the, the water deep into the jetty. And I just looked straight down and the jetty looked like it continued for miles. And in reality, it's not that long. It's maybe a quarter mile probably, maybe even less, definitely less. And I was scared shitless. And then I look out to the view. The water just extends, The water's just out there. And the sky was like this pinkish blue orange hue. And the sky and the sea, the ocean, or whatever, the fucking water, it met and it extended for infinity. Like it was fucking crazy. I've never seen anything so beautiful in my life. And they were just like, yo, Sean, you there? Like, snap out of it. Because I was just staring, like, off into the distance. They were like, what the fuck is good with this guy? And they were like, come on, let's go out to the jetty. Like, we gotta smoke. And I was like, nah, bro, I can't do that. And they were like, why? It's like, bro, it looks so fucking scary. Like, I'm not going there. And they were like, bro, come on. Like, stop being a pussy, right? They're like, yo, let's go. Like, it'll be fun. And in this state, like, I still had a little bit of like reasoning ability in me, and I knew that I wouldn't be able to, go on these rocks in this altered state of mind. So I said, fuck that, I'm not doing that shit. What do you call it? Eventually, they just gave up on trying to convince me, and they went on their own way. Now I'm stuck here at the fucking beginning of this jetty, surrounded by people. There's a lot of people here. This is like a popular place where people go, And there's a lot of people just walking onto the jetty, coming off of it. There's some people standing near me. So I was near like this place that had a couple of trees. I was just standing under one of the trees, just looking out and onto the view because I was mesmerized in it until I wasn't. And then I got shook and I was like, what the fuck am I doing? And then I look around and I see all these people around me and I start getting anxious. So I was a little bit scared, but then I was like, oh no, I'll be fine. I'll just keep looking off into the distance and wait until they came. 5 minutes go by, 10 minutes go by, and then I'm like, yo, these guys are taking a bit long. Like, should I call them? And literally, as soon as I had that thought to call them, I see people looking at me. And I'm like, what the fuck? Like, why are these people looking at me? Like, I was already scared enough, right? And now they're looking at me. And I could see them, like, whispering, like they were huddled in groups. They were all talking to each other. I heard people laughing, and I saw people with their phones out. And my mind was going crazy. My paranoia started to mess with my reasoning ability. And I just started coming up with scenarios in which I would get fucked. So I was like, yo, these people had their phones out. What if they took pictures of me? What if I go viral for being, this fucking tripping kid on acid at fucking whatever park we were at, right? And all these thoughts combined with my previous paranoia regarding, Trap God Grok and college finding out, and then my parents finding out through all these pictures circulating online, I really started to have a panic attack almost. And it was bad as fuck. So now I'm calling my friends. I'm like, yo, like, you guys need to come back. Like, these people are like fucking around with me, like they're taking pictures of me and shit, they're huddled all around me. And my friends pick up and they're like, yo, like, you know, we'll come back, it's okay, we're almost done. And I was like, yo, you guys need to hurry the fuck up. Now, this was probably like 15 to 20 minutes into me waiting, and I called them probably around the 15 to 20 minute mark, and not even 2 minutes later, things got so much worse after that phone call ended, because then things really started to get scary. You know, like everybody started to inch closer and closer to me, and it seemed like every person that was getting off the jetty was recognizing me in some way, shape, or form. They would all look over, laugh. I saw people speaking Spanish, laughing about me, like saying that I was chiefing. Like, it seemed like everybody knew what I did and why I was so spaced out. So eventually, I saw my friends. Saw them coming back from the jetty. I could see them, you know, jumping like rock to rock, you know. But eventually, they stopped. And on the jetty, they started jumping up and down and waving at me. And then I was like, huh? And I waved at them. And they just stood there. I mean, they didn't come any closer. And I was very shocked. And I was like, there's no way these guys are messing with me right now. Of all times, there's no way they're fucking around with me, because I'm genuinely in a state of panic. And I just see them jumping up and down and laughing while pointing at me. And it was the most belittling thing I've experienced in my life, I think. At that moment, I questioned my friendships. At that moment, I questioned if I'm even hanging out with the right people. And eventually they got to me, and they, you know, took a hold of me or whatever, calmed me down. Now, one of my friends is an absolute dick, and he's one of the friends that I'm not exactly too close with. And I've always been very sus of his intentions, especially recently. And the first thing he thinks to do when he comes back is to pull out his phone and start recording me while I'm in this state of panic. And it was absolutely terrible, because my paranoia kicked in again, and I was like, wow, like, this is my fucking friend, and he's doing this shit. And the car ride back, we got in the car, obviously, and somehow, some way, I convinced him to delete the photo or video, whatever the fuck he took, because he was like, hey guys, like, this is Trap God Gronk, like, look at him, bro, like, he's fucking clapped or some shit. And, you know, I had to get him to delete it. Thankfully, everyone agreed, and they made him. I don't know if he has it to this day or not. There's really no way of confirming that, but I hope he would be a good friend and delete it. Moving on, the car ride back was what sucked. We were on the way back from the park, and I wouldn't shut the fuck up. I just would not stop talking. That is how my two close friends described that moment in the car. They said that anything and everything that was being said was somehow misconstrued by me into believing that they were talking about me, they were shit-talking me. Anything and everything was somehow about me in that moment. That 30-minute ride back, my friend told me his head was hurting because I just would not shut the fuck up. Because I would go into the most outlandish topics. I would start talking about microscopes, space, fucking cars, engines. And even if I had no idea what I was talking about, I would somehow keep going further and further with the pseudoscience and just random facts that I would just combine together and somehow make them work within the context of the conversation. And that experience alone, I don't even remember, like, well. The only thing I remember is the experience by the jetty, the view, and then the munchies that I had in the car before we got to the park. And some of the stuff beforehand when I was way more, you know, aware of the things going on around me. That is where the experience thankfully ends. You know, we get home. I don't really remember how I came down. I think I came down in the car on the ride back, and we just went into my garage and we just chilled and kind of just waited for it to go away even more. And then I think I went to bed. And that was quite possibly the craziest thing I would have imagined to happen. I thought it was just going to be some chill experience where I'm in more of like a depressed state in terms of mentally cognition, not like depressed in a psychological manner. Just like my senses are lowered, more relaxed. The stereotypical high, right? That's what I figured it was going to be. And it completely turned out to be something else. It turned out to be a psychological thriller, if you want to call it that. I definitely do not recommend doing edibles for the first time. Don't. If you're going to do edibles, make sure you smoked before. Because it is not, trust me, I would not recommend it to anybody else. Edibles are fine. I've taken them 3 times after this experience, and I've never had anything close to this happen again. And I'm glad, because I don't know if my heart could handle that shit, because I was genuinely like, that is the most afraid I've been. Now, I don't want you guys to go into the comments and be like, yo, like, I'm so sorry for your experience or any of that shit. It's completely on me. It's a very stupid decision I made. I should have listened to my friend and just smoked with them. Make sure you do it with a group of people that you are comfortable with. You do not want to go into this with people that are going to gaslight you and heighten your paranoia and just overall be insensitive. It is not a good experience to have. I definitely do not recommend it to anyone. So yeah, guys, stay safe. And I'll see you in the next one. Peace.